Hey everybody, this is Ramit Sethi from I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Today I want to unveil the beginnings of something I've been working on for almost the last 10 years. Many of you know that we all have weird hobbies in college. Some of us like to watch movies. Other of us like to drink alcohol. Well, for me, my hobby was improving my resume. That's right, I'm a huge weirdo, and I spent over 100 man-hours creating the most finely tuned resume that mankind has ever seen. By the end, it was truly perfect. And I mean that. There was not one flaw, not one blemish, not one thing that could have been improved. That is my only claim to fame. Actually, what I had done was spend a lot of time talking with my friends about careers. Especially starting around sophomore year, everybody at Stanford started getting involved in summer internships. So we had a ton of opportunities to interview with companies. We had a huge amount of opportunities to figure out which career path should we choose, which job should we choose, what are the best answers to interview questions. And in fact, I set up a little group with my friends where about 4 of us would get together and we would actually exchange the single best interview questions and answers that we got and received. And these were very, very advanced sessions that we held with each other. And we basically got to create, craft, and test the best interview answers against the world's best interviewers for the world's best companies. These were companies like Bain, McKinsey, Google, Microsoft, the kind of companies that pay elite salaries for elite graduates. Well, along the way, I was also talking to my friends and I was getting really interested in why they were making the career choices they were. The fact of the matter is, at the university I went to, at Stanford, most people graduated debt-free because most of them had their parents paying. And so it was a very interesting, almost scientific blank slate where you could watch people who had no real debt motivation and watch the decisions they made when it came to their career. And I was fascinated. I discovered so many interesting things. For example, I had friends that would talk about working at Company A for 3 years. They were obsessed with it. Company A would make them an offer. They were so excited. Then Company B would come along, pay them $10,000 more. And all of a sudden, they would switch and say, you know what? I think Company B is not that bad. I think I'm going to learn a lot. I think it could be really good. They would totally rationalize changing their decision. And all it cost for them to get bought out was $10,000. For me, I found that ridiculous. I knew that if I made the right decisions, the money would come. And there would be more money than I could even imagine. For me, I laughed at $10,000 because I would have rather taken a job that paid far less than $10,000, knowing that eventually I would make $10,000 in a day. And indeed, what has happened is I've actually made $10,000 in an hour. So what I want to share today are some of the insights that I learned from my friends, some of whom made excellent career decisions and have gone on to find jobs that they love, others who kind of meandered around, and some of them who continue to meander around, not sure about which career decisions they should make. These are not all friends from Stanford, by the way. They're from all walks of life. Since college, I have actually worked with many, many people, helping them discover what it is they want to do, all the way down to the tactical questions of what do I say in this interview? What should I wear? How do I address that question that will come up about my resume? And so over the next few months, I'm going to be walking you through some of the insights I discovered and also some of the answers to these questions. Some specific techniques I have found that have worked wonders to secure dream jobs. I'm going to be sharing stories of people who went from jobs they didn't necessarily love to careers they love every day that they go into them. I'm going to talk about common mistakes. I'm going to talk about the psychological aspect of finding your dream job, which is highly ignored. And I'm basically going to give you and equip you with the tools so that you can find the job that you love. Today, I'm going to be going over an overview of what I've learned, along with some insights that you can use for crafting your own dream job. Again, this is for people who work in a job and know that they could probably be doing something more effective, more rewarding, something that they appreciate more, and something that could be contributing more to the world. So stick along with me. I think this is going to be fun. Let's get right to it. So, who is this video for? This video is actually, it's for people who are sick of their current job, but not just sick of it. In fact, in my research, I found a lot of people who were like, you know what, I'm actually fairly happy at my job. I'm doing okay, I get paid fairly, but I know that I could be doing more. And in fact, this becomes particularly acute around certain life moments. For many of us, especially men, it happens when they turn 30. Because when you turn 30, you consider yourself an adult. Oh no. And also when you come out of college, you're 22, you don't know what's going on. But when you turn 30 or when you become in your late 20s, a lot of people say, wait a minute, is that all there is? Shouldn't I be flying around on jets advising CEOs? And instead, here I am, and I can almost see the path to becoming exactly what my 45-year-old or 55-year-old coworkers are. I don't want to do that. How do I find a job that's more rewarding to me? Not just monetarily, although that's an important part of it, but also something that allows me to contribute more of my skills and even develop more skills that can contribute to the world. This is also for people who want to change course. Like I said, they want to start a completely new career, but have no idea what they can do. And this is a big issue for people, particularly younger people, who are almost overwhelmed by choice, overwhelmed by how many decisions they can make and how many interests they have. Stop for a moment and see if that resonates with you. Does that sound like you? Too many choices, too many options, too many interests. You're not sure where to start. Okay, and finally, people who are new to the workforce, but you don't just want to get any job, you want to find your dream job. That's what this is about. It's not just about finding any job. I'm not interested in really talking to people who are just willing to settle for any job. There's many other people who talk to that audience. I'm interested in people who are wanting and willing to put in the time to find their dream job, because it's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different set of strategies and techniques. Now, I want to just talk to you about why am I speaking about dream jobs. Does this really have anything to do with money? As you know, I run I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Many people think that it's a blog about money. Indeed, it's actually a blog about behavioral change. My background in social influence and persuasion makes it my own personal laboratory to help people lead richer lives. If you'll notice, though, I did start with money. That's because everybody has money. Almost nobody knows what they're doing with money, and the advice about money is terrible. So if I want to change people's behavior, that's a relatively easy way to hook people in and show them how they can use some very simple techniques to, for example, negotiate fees, automate their investments, and earn more. And that's what I talked about in my book and in one of my other courses called Earn 1K. Well, what I've noticed over the last few years, and even back to college, was, our career takes up a huge percentage of our time. We spend our time there, we think about it a lot, but there's very little good guidance on finding a dream job and thinking about your career. Much of it is generic advice, very similar to personal finance advice, where you get people saying, find your passion. What the hell does that mean? Find my passion. Okay, what do I do? How? What should I say? What's the email script I should use? And people say things like, yeah, you should definitely negotiate your salary. Okay, how? What do I say? What do I do? Show me other people who have done it like me. It's a very vague, nebulous area, particularly after we come out of college, where we're given very strict and simple guidelines. Get an A, and that means you're successful. Well, that doesn't work in the real world. Now, here's something I want to emphasize. Many people, and I know very, very smart people, who are kind of feeling the same way. They are in a job, they're kind of marginally satisfied or even kind of satisfied, and they're saying to themselves, is this it? The approach, for the most part, is their problem. It's not their intellect or qualifications. In fact, all of us know people who are not as smart as we are, and they have better jobs. How'd they do it? How? It's the approach. And I want to talk about some assumptions, okay? Let's start with the first one. I'm not qualified. Many people believe that they need to, for example, go back to school to get their dream job. In fact, right now in my email inbox, right before I started recording this, I have an email from a girlfriend of a friend of mine, and she knew that I was working on some stuff in the career space, and she sent me this Facebook message, and we have this Facebook conversation that's gone on over the last 2 hours, about 6 messages back and forth. And she said, I'm thinking of going back to grad school in X area, and I was wondering if you could give me some advice. And I basically said, tell me more about why do you want to go back? And her thing was she wanted to develop more skills so she could get her dream job. This is a common belief that I'm not qualified, so let me go back to grad school. Or I'm not qualified, so I need to spend the next 5 years building up my skill set. Now, in certain cases, this is absolutely true. But you would be surprised that you can often go directly to your dream job without having to build up a massive skill set. In fact, if you can convince them on other criteria to hire you, you can actually use that dream job to learn those skills while being paid a very handsome salary. Now, let me emphasize this because it's so important and it differs so much from what we hear in the general public and general media. The general media loves to talk about how build your skills, go back to grad school. And listen, I'm a fan of grad school. I went to grad school myself at Stanford. But your approach is just as critical, if not more important. Let me give you an example. When I applied to colleges, I was a high school student, and I spent a lot of time researching how top students got into top universities. And the conclusion I came to was that the application is at least as important as your actual experience in high school with grades and extracurriculars. And let me put it bluntly, I was not the smartest kid in my class. In fact, I got the worst grade in my math class, and I was the only student in my AP math class to fail my AP test, okay? However, I was a very good writer, and I took a lot of time to write great essays and put together an incredible application. I tested it with dozens of people, making sure that it stood out. It had a common thread throughout the entire application, and my essays were extremely strong. Now, getting into Stanford had a lot of luck involved with it, but I can't help but stack the odds in my favor by creating an incredible application. Okay, luck is luck. You can't control that, but you can control the factors that contribute to luck, and you can control the things that you can control. In this case, your approach. So yes, maybe it makes sense to get more skills. For example, if you want to be a doctor and you have no skills, yes, you may need to go back for some degrees and post-bac, pre-med, etc. But often your approach is simply not the right approach. And I'm going to show you some specifics about what I mean by that. Here's another one that drives me absolutely nuts. I'm lucky to have a job in this economy. How many times have our friends and how many times has the media drilled this into us? In fact, in the last few years, as the economy frankly tanked, my Earn 1K students were busy earning thousands of dollars a month on the side, while others simply raised their hands to the sky and complained about Obama this or President that or Congress this and, oh my God, the gold standard that. Look, the macroeconomy has very little to do with your personal finances. So while it's easy and fulfilling to complain, that has very little to do with your finances and your career. Now, is it tough to find a job out there in a recession economy? Of course it is. But top people are still being recruited, and I can tell you that as a hiring manager, I'm hiring for my own company, and I'm finding it incredibly difficult to find the kind of people that I want. And in fact, I would pay extra to find those top candidates. So when I can show you today and over the next few months how to become a top candidate, it's not a question about can I get a job. It should be a question of which job is the best fit for me as you choose among multiple job offers. And that's my goal for you. All right. Now, let's talk about the basics of how most people do their job search, see if any of this sounds familiar, and then we're going to talk about a better way. So most people love tweaking and tuning their resume. Make sure it's as up to date as possible. This is basically my stupidity in college. As I said, I spent over 100 man hours. I don't know, I just liked it. I was a weirdo, okay? Next thing they do is they go online, site like a monster.com or any other job board, and they search for general terms like marketing manager, okay? And then they take their resume and they write a cover letter and send it in. Maybe, this is optional, but some people will reach out to a few contacts and then they basically sit down on their couch and wait with their hands held to the sky saying, rain down on me, jobs. Sound familiar? With few exceptions, that is how the vast majority of people conduct their job search. Here's what usually happens. They find out that the positions aren't paying what they want, or they require something like 10 years of experience, which is like very unlikely for someone who's looking for a job in this area. They find that they'll send resumes and they will get no response. They'll find that the jobs that are put up Monday are gone by Tuesday. And then they conclude, and this is possibly the most horrifying and depressing part of all, that the job market sucks. What can I do? I'm trying my best. Now, to them, they have tried their best. But as I said earlier, the approach is profoundly influential and important in finding your dream job. If you continue doing something that doesn't work, why would you expect to get different results? Isn't that the definition of insanity? There are invisible effects to doing this as well. And these are extremely important, and they are ignored by virtually everyone in the career space. Here's one, and this is psychological. People can only hear no so many times. After a while, they simply start saying, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to do anything. And that's when you have people who have essentially given up. We all have friends who were fun employed, which actually was pretty cool. I had a lot of fun employed friends. They were more fun than my other friends, okay? They'd go at any time. But after a while, it becomes not so cool to be fun employed. And you ask them, what have they done? And they kind of just shrug their shoulders. Have you applied to any jobs in the last couple weeks? Shrug. Economy's really tough. I've tried. You'll hear phrases like that. Worse, they begin to undervalue themselves. And so it becomes this vicious cycle where they apply to these jobs, they don't get them or they don't hear anything. They say, you know what, after a while they say, okay, well, I got to get something. And they apply to virtually anything. They shotgun their resume out to anyone. Here's the problem. They're not the only ones doing it. In fact, virtually everyone else is doing the same things. And so employers are looking at these incredible resumes for their entry-level jobs, and they have their pick. I have a friend, works at a nonprofit. She was hiring basically like a receptionist. It was a receptionist level position. The pay was roughly high 30s. That's 38, 39,000, something like that. And she had resumes from MBAs, from Stanford graduates. No kidding. That's because it's not just about your education or your skill set. It's about your approach. At the end of the day, these candidates who have been applying and they genuinely believe that they're trying as hard as they can, they say, I've looked everywhere, I've tried everything. Oh, well, there's nothing else I can do. And as you know, you can probably see the analogies and the parallels between this and personal finance. Many people try to cut back on small things like lattes, and at the end of the day, they're still not saving money, and they shrug their shoulders and say, I tried. There's nothing else I can do. And in fact, had they tried a totally different approach, like the one I outlined in my book, in terms of conscious spending and investing in automatic savings, they would actually be able to see quick results and big results. So here's the problem. While this generic method can work for some people, it's demoralizing, and frankly, it doesn't work. Even for smart people. I mentioned top-tier university graduates who are applying to entry-level jobs. Here's the thing. It's not just that they're doing the wrong things, although they are. It's also that they're spending time and energy and ignoring the most important things of all. So think about it. Let's go back to the money example. You got somebody who wants to save money, so they jump in headfirst. Oh, I'm going to cut back on lattes. I'm going to cut back on buying a medium-sized Coke every day. And they really believe, they feel that they're doing something. But invariably, they yo-yo back to what they were doing before. And now they feel demoralized because they've tried it. Well, they yo-yo back and forth a few more months, and finally they give up. And they actually believe that they tried their hardest. And within that small box, they did. But they never stopped to see the big picture and realize there are actually different strategies that work far more effectively. And in fact, while they were using every ounce of willpower and energy to cut back on that morning latte, which they love and they should probably just get, they were ignoring more important things, like setting up an automatic investment account, okay? Like automatically transferring money into their 401k, things that actually matter. So not only were they causing psychological harm to themselves by putting themselves in a situation where they would find that they would yo-yo back and forth, they were actually ignoring the stuff that would cause real change. This is the same for job seekers who take the traditional approach, particularly in this economy. Now, let's talk about the solution. You may have heard of the 80-20 rule, okay? A vast majority of your results tend to come from a small minority of your efforts. We see this everywhere. We see this in business. We see this in nature. We see this in relationships. In business, for example, many companies know that 20% of their customers drive 80% of their profits, okay? Tim Ferriss, a friend of mine, talked about this very memorably in his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. What this means is that there are a few critical activities that really matter. Okay? And instead, what most people do is they focus their time on the least effective activities, but the activities that seem most salient. You can also think of this in an analogy that I talk about to my Earn 1K students. I talk about how to earn more money, and I talk about how most people, when they start earning more money, they spend tons of time creating a Twitter account, a Facebook account, business cards, website. All that makes them genuinely feel that they're doing something, that they're being productive. But in fact, even if they complete all those things, they still have no customers, and they still have no idea if their idea is valid. They haven't validated it. A better approach is simply to spend most of your time validating your idea, forget the social media accounts, okay, and focus on getting 3 paying customers. If you do that, you are far more successful than someone who has every social media account under the sun. Again, what we're talking about is focusing on the most effective activities that are going to get you results to find your dream job in the shortest amount of time. Now, here's some specifics. What do most people spend too much time on? Resumes and cover letters. You know, forget my example, 100 hours, I'm a nutcase, and if I were to do it today, I would not spend that much time. People overthink this way too much. And in fact, resumes aren't even the most effective marketing you can do. They're basically a necessary but not sufficient condition. In other words, you probably need a resume, but it's probably not enough to get you your dream job. So spend enough time, but not that much time. Most people spend way too much time. The other thing is people spend tons of time responding to job ads. The fact is, job ads in general are going to give you opportunities that are for the great unwashed masses. To find your dream job, let me emphasize this and listen carefully. You need to separate yourself from the great unwashed masses. And I'm going to show you how to do that today and over the next few months. Look what I wrote here. The very best jobs are taken before they're ever advertised. I want to show you how to find, root out, identify, and get those jobs before anyone else even knows about them. Finally, they spend a ton of time trying to get noticed. They create blogs and Twitter accounts as if some employer is randomly going to find you across there. Now, it happens. It does happen, but it happens very sparingly. We all hear stories about the guy who got a job at some hot tech startup because he created a website and said, please hire me, blah, blah, blah. That happens, and it's remarkable when it does. But for the most part, you can do without that by going directly to the source. Here's the problem. This is the big one. They're passive. Most people feel comfortable sitting around and waiting for someone else to come and find them a job. Now, we don't like to hear this, but I'm going to give you a specific example. In preparation for working on this dream job material, I took a few people and I was coaching them one-on-one. And I told them, look, I will give you free coaching. And normally I don't do coaching, and if I do, I charge an outrageous amount. I will give you free coaching. In exchange, you agree to appear in the press when I find you your dream job. Okay? Now, we had one young woman. She was in her mid to late 20s, and she was actually highly accomplished. She had made a very good salary at her previous job, etc. Each week, we would get on the phone with her. We would look at her Google Doc, which she had sent to us, and she would update us with what she was doing. And after a while, we said, why are you not following through with the things we told you last week? Each week, we tell you these specific tactics, and you're not following through with them. Why? And this happened week after week, and we were finally able to identify what was going on. She told us that, I'm busy. I'm so busy. I'm spending all my time. We said, on what? You haven't even applied to the 10 companies we told you to apply to. And she was spending all of her time answering recruiters. She was spending her time fielding these emails from recruiters. Now, we told her, look, most recruiters are worthless. You're wasting your time. But there was something deeper. Why? She knew that she was wasting her time because she wasn't getting the results. So what was going on? The psychological insight we uncovered were twofold. First of all, she continued doing the activity without ever stopping to say, is this working or not? Is this effective or not? What she did was basically continue doing more and more of it, saying, if I just try harder, then I'll get the result I want. If I just respond to 50 recruiters, not just 25, then maybe I'll get that job. Never stopping to say, hey, let me give myself a goal. I'm going to talk to 20 recruiters. If I don't have at least 5 interviews, I'm done with this channel. Instead, she just went along with the idea of try harder. As we know, that doesn't work. The second thing is she was being passive. Most of us love handing over the responsibility for many parts of our life to someone else. This can be good. This can also be bad. For example, I have someone who cleans my apartment for me. I think that's pretty good. My time isn't best spent cleaning my apartment. I have the money to pay someone, and it's a nice way of kind of outsourcing something that's important to me but not that important. Okay, that I think is a good measure. On the other hand, I am absolutely worthless at repairing anything in my apartment. So for example, I have a nail hanging on my wall. I have no idea how to remove it. Like I said, I'm basically functionally useless. That's probably bad. I probably should learn some basics of something like that. Well, here's another example. When it comes to our jobs, we love to basically hand off responsibility to someone else. That's why we do things like shooting off our resume to 50 sites and then just sit there and wait. Because if they really wanted me, they would come and find me, right? Or we talk to all these recruiters who are mostly wasting our time because then we believe that the onus is on them. Well, here's what we told her. No one wants you to get a dream job more than you. These recruiters are wasting your time, and you haven't evaluated the ROI to see if it works or not. Here's the interesting thing. Let's move on to the second point here. They make you feel more productive. That's exactly what happened with this young woman we were coaching. She really legitimately and genuinely felt that she was spending all kinds of time. We said, yeah, you're spending time, but it's on all the wrong things. You could do this for the next year and you would never get a job. That's why it's not just important to work hard, it's important to work on the right things. And finally, of course, everyone else is doing these things too. So you're just entering this great mass of unwashed people. I don't know, that might be a condescending phrase to use. Maybe I shouldn't use that phrase anymore. You're basically competing against a lot of other people who are doing the same thing. So you don't want to be in that position. I have never done well competing directly against people. I simply go around and find out an innovative way to hit my goals. All right? Now, yeah, you need to do some of these things, but you need to be allocating your time properly. So why do we do this? The first is that we simply don't know any other way. No one taught us how to look for our dream job. I'm not just talking about the tactics of where do you send your resume. I'm also talking about understanding what is it you want to do with your life. No one talked to us about that. Second, there's no real strategy. Think about it. Think about how you may have been managing your money before I Will Teach You to Be Rich came along. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you've adopted my system and hopefully you found some really good results with it. Think about what you were doing before, or think about your friends who don't have such a system or a framework. Randomly, they'll spend money here or there. Randomly, they'll get motivated to save their money. Randomly, they'll decide that they need to cut back on something for a month, and then they'll go right back to where they were. But if you have a system like the one I outlined in my book, then you know about a conscious spending plan. You know about automatic savings, automatic investing. You know how to spend money on the things you love. A system is important because it allows you to understand where you are in the grand scheme of things, and then it allows you to do a deep dive into specific areas. For example, let's say you're on week 1. You know that this is what you should be doing right now. You don't need to be worrying about how to negotiate your salary because you're not even at that level yet. A system lets you focus with almost strategic tunnel vision on what you need to be focused on right now so that later you can focus on something else. All right, so I've talked about why we do this, why we misallocate our time, why we compete with other people that we don't even want to be competing with. What's the alternative? Here it is. And apparently they're all so important they're labeled number 1. All right, so here's what it is, and I'm going to go into detail on these. The first is getting extremely specific about what you're looking for. In fact, more specific than you can even imagine. I'll talk to you about that. The second, or also number 1, is getting in touch with the right people. And here's a hint, that's not sending your resume in through the website of a company you're interested in. Number 3, showing how you're the best candidate for the position. Okay, let's take a look at all these. And I want to highlight these, I'll give you some examples, we'll go from there. So, most people are not super specific about what it is they want. For example, in one of the coaching clients that I worked with, I asked her, what is it that you, what's your dream job? And she used extremely vague words. Well, I want to work, in technology. I want to do this. I want to do that. I don't know, maybe a product manager, marketing manager, etc. And we started digging in. What kind of technology? What size company? What location? Why do you want it? Product manager or marketing manager? Those are two totally different things. When we dug in, she did not know the answer to that. Now, I don't expect you to know that answer today, but I'm going to outline what it takes to be able to find your dream job. Do you know the actual job you want? The actual job description, the job title, examples of 10 companies that have that. In fact, do you know people in those jobs? And have you taken them out to coffee? Here's the thing. For young people in particular, as I mentioned, we are overwhelmed with choice. And one of the psychological barriers to getting specific is that we believe it's actually going to cut off our options. So this is a common thing we've found in our research of over 25,000 people now. People say, well, if I get that specific, then I have all these other interests and I'm not going to be able to do those. Well, here's the correct approach. The correct approach is to list them all out, pick one based on some criteria I can give you later, and just go down the rabbit hole. Try to get your dream job in that category. If it doesn't work, then you go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But listen closely. You will learn 10 times more from picking one and executing than sitting here in a room and trying to come up with your dream position on your own. Let me put it another way. When overwhelmed with choice, most people retreat. They retreat into themselves, they retreat into their room, and they will get a blank sheet of paper and they'll try to write it all out. A much more effective approach is actually to spend a few minutes writing out some options and then get out. Go external, talk to friends, take people out to coffee, informational interviews, and go external to test these ideas. That's what we're going to talk about. That's a very different approach than what most people do. So as I write here, it may seem counterintuitive, but by forcing yourself to choose, you actually increase your chance of getting results because you're going to be tailoring your approach to the exact and deeply specific position and dream job that you're going for. All right, so here's the thing. Here's an example of kind of what one of the coaching clients said to us when we asked her what she wanted to do. Quote, I want to work with innovative growing companies that add value by leveraging my unique management skills. Forgive me for saying, but what the fuck does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. That could be someone who works at McDonald's. That could be someone who works at Google. That doesn't mean anything. So what I'm going to do is challenge you to get ultra specific on what it is you want to do. Now, I know if you're listening, the first thing running through my mind would be, well, I don't even know what I want to do. I'm going to show you how to come to that conclusion. Remember that I did the same thing with Earn 1K. With Earn 1K students, this is a pretty broad thing. They wanted to earn money. So we created a framework and we tested it with thousands and thousands of people that let them rapidly come up with several ideas and then test to find a profitable idea. Okay? It can be done, and I'm going to show you how. Another reason, like I said, people are afraid of closing doors. And finally, the approach, as I mentioned, is you pick one based on some criteria, the one that's maximally going to give you the chance of finding your dream job. You pick that, you pursue it, and if it doesn't work, guess what? You have 10 other options. So it's not like you're closing doors, you're simply temporarily putting those aside while you pursue this one relentlessly. If it works, great, you've got a dream job. If it doesn't, great, you've got 10 other options. All right, next is getting in touch with the right people. Now, as we think about the word networking, many of us have the 3 S's, sleazy, slimy, scammy. Networking is a guy with, really kind of greasy hair who goes into a conference, throws his business cards around, makes it rain, and then leaves. Call me up. Who wants to be that jackass? In truth, networking is about giving, and it's also about helping people see how they can help you too. First is giving. Second is helping people see how they can help you. Remember, most people want to help. We just don't ask. If someone came to you and said, hey, I would really love your advice on how you got your money system set up. You would love to sit down with them and talk to them about what you did, conscious spending plan, this, automatic that. When was the last time someone did that? I almost guarantee the answer is never. Notice what I wrote here on the third point. Other people, see, I can't use this phrase, the unwashed masses now, so I don't know what to say. Other people won't even know what they're looking for, so they don't even know who to go ask for help. But you will. And when you are crystal clear, you will know exactly the kind of people, you'll know exactly what to say, because I'm going to give you those exact scripts, including email scripts and conversational scripts. And you'll know exactly how to go about it, being an ethical networker. All right? By the way, it's not just about collecting information. So imagine that you had a team of people working to help you find a job. Notice that this is not like recruiters who don't really they just want the money, right? A team of people, friends, is something that can be incredibly powerful. And I want to share a couple of examples with you. I currently have an intern working for me. He asked me, he said, hey, the school year's starting up, and during my school year, I have the opportunity to intern with a company. It's part of my school. Do you think you could introduce me to some companies? I said, sure, send me the list of companies. I'll be happy to introduce you. So he sends me a list of companies. All of a sudden, he's got me as his ally. So I'm out there using my network. Now, I know a lot of people at these companies, some senior people as well. I said, look, I wrote this email. I said, look, this is an intern for me. He does very good work. He's looking for an internship, and I would highly recommend him. Can you get him in there for an interview? Imagine he had me and 5 other people like me out there working for him. Now, he's not absolving himself of responsibility. He's still chasing down leads himself. But the way he thinks about me is I'm icing on the cake. He's hopefully going to find a job on his own, but it can't hurt to have people like me with connections out there with his back, actively looking for jobs. And guess what? I told him, ping me on Friday. He did. This was last Friday, by the way. And I had already gotten him 2 interested people that said, yeah, I'd love to talk to him. And one more had said, I'm not sure, but I'd love to have him to the office for lunch. That's in 4 days. So think about how you can multiply that by many people. Now, I want to talk about the objections that are going on in your head right now, the psychology. What are the things that are going on? Let me guess. See if this sounds accurate. Well, that's great, Ramit, but not all of us have access to a blogger like you. Actually, we all do have access to many, many people. We just don't realize who's in our network. Okay, and we'll teach you how to do that. We all have people that can help us dramatically find our dream jobs. We just fail to realize and recognize who they are. That's a very important point. You already have someone right now in your network that could help you get your dream job. You just haven't even met them yet. And let me give you some examples. Your parents' friends, your alumni network, your friends of friends. Okay? There are so many examples of your network, and we'll talk about how to do that. All right? So, your end goal should be an introduction to the person who has the authority to hire you for the job you want. And by the way, you want to be 100% qualified and prepared by the time you get there. I'm going to show you how to do that. Notice how different this is from every other approach. From that common approach of spending a ton of time on worthless things, setting up a social media account, firing off your resume to 50 or 100 different companies and then sitting there waiting. This is totally different. What you've done here is get ultra specific about what it is you want. Again, I'll teach you some frameworks to do that. Then you've got in touch with the right people. You've gone both direct. That's what my little intern is doing. But you've also used your own network to become your ally, your team, and they're looking out for you too. And now you've got multiple channels all working for you even while you sleep. Now, here's the third part. Showing why you're the candidate, the best candidate for the position. Here's the thing. Most people, if they get an interview, I'm thrilled that they did. They walk in, and there's no compelling reason why I or any hiring manager should hire them. They're just applying for the job. Your goal is that by the time you get into that interview, in fact, before that, they already know that you are such a compelling candidate that they're already moving heaven and earth and making special exceptions for you. This happens, by the way. The people that I've coached, by the time they get to an interview, it's almost not an interview. It's almost a discussion. Would this be a fit for you? Let's talk about it. It's almost the most unconventional job interview you've ever had. This is the kind of stuff when I used to interview for companies, because I had done so much legwork before, because I had often met the hiring manager at coffee or something like that before, when we walked into an interview, it was a totally different dynamic. Also, it was a different dynamic because I was ultra prepared. This is how, for example, one summer internship, I beat out Stanford MBA students as I believe I was a sophomore. All right? So that tells you something, that the level of preparation, your introductions, and the way you present yourself can be profoundly impactful in securing that dream job. Now remember, every hiring manager's number one question, why should I hire you? If you answer, I'm hardworking, reliable, passionate, and smart, that's great. So's everybody else. That is not an answer. And neither is, I really believe I can make a contribution. That's not an answer. Everybody answers that. Your answer will be totally different. Okay? Remember, it doesn't necessarily mean more experienced. Those Stanford MBA students were way more experienced than I was. And yet I beat them all out as a sophomore. All right? How do you do that? First, by actually knowing and understanding what the hiring manager cares about. In other words, a little bit of mind reading. Mind reading plus research equals success. You're going to know what their challenges are, what their barriers are, what keeps them up at night, what worries them, and you're going to have crafted the correct answers to all of those things. Do you need to have a lot of experience for this? You need to have some experience, but you often don't need to go back to grad school or get another job to find your dream job. You can actually develop it right there. All right. Second, by showing, not just telling, why you're the best solution to their problems. Notice that most people never even think about the hiring manager's problems. They just go in there and talk about themselves. Here's a hint, shut up. Everyone talks about themselves in job interviews. And yeah, you need to talk about yourself a little bit, but you also need to walk in there having done extensive homework so that you understand the hiring manager's problems better than almost anyone else. You use the words they use. You talk about the issues they talk about to their internal team. When you do this, you rise above everyone else. This is how I've secured jobs at many top companies, including companies like Google and Intuit. Okay? By the way, notice this second sub-bullet here. You've prepared proof that you can do this job more convincingly than anybody else has. When was the last time you went into an interview and instead of just talking, you actually pulled out documents showing what you would do in your first 30, 60, and 90 days? You ever do that? Top candidates do. We're going to talk about other tactics like that as well. If you can get this far, you'll be better off than 99% of applicants. And by the way, you'll be that much more likely to get the dream job and deserve it. Notice that none of this had to do with reading extra books on a programming language or going back to grad school. This is about your approach. This is about what you can control today, in the next 90 days, to find your dream job. So let's recap. Yes, you should still improve your resume and cover letter. Most of them are terrible anyway, but you can improve that. There's tons of resources online. I'm going to give you tons of resources in subsequent weeks and months. Yes, you should respond to job ads, and yes, you should network. But also, let's not spend the majority of our time doing just that. That's what most people do, and they stop there and wonder, why can't I get a job? Much less, why can't I get a dream job? Instead, get ultra specific about what you're looking for. Get in touch with the right people. This means personal connections. Like I said, your alumni network, your parents' friends, your friends of friends, etc. And then show, not tell, but show why you're the best candidate for the position. If you do this, you will certainly stand out. And I can tell you that both as a candidate when I've applied to companies and internships and full-time jobs out of college, and as a hiring manager, I know this works. The final way that I know this works is I've coached many people to get jobs that pay very good salaries, six-figure jobs, okay, multiple six-figure jobs. These are top jobs as well as jobs that are relatively entry-level, okay, like one of our coaching students. So these are what's important right now. Uh-oh, what if? Oh my God. What if I don't know what I want? What if I don't have anybody to talk to? What if I don't have any experience? Notice the increasingly frantic number of question marks there. Boy, this is getting crazy. Okay, first of all, if you're asking these questions, you're on the right track. You are doing something different than most people, which is to simply shotgun out your resume and hope that something happens. And then if it doesn't happen, complain about politics and macroeconomics and the economy and Congress. Okay? You're doing something different. You're taking your career search, especially for a dream job, into your own hands. Now, I am working on something that's going to answer all these questions and more in a step-by-step fashion. All right? I'm going to be putting out more videos. I'm going to be putting out actual case studies, scripts, email scripts that you can rip off and use right away, conversational scripts that you can use when you meet these people. And I'm going to be sending out some stuff that I'm going to keep quiet for right now, but I think is going to transform your search for a dream job. If you're interested, please do sign up at this URL below, iwillteachyoutoberiich.com/dreamjob. Over the next few months, I'm going to give you what I hope is incredible material that I'll give you for free that rivals and I believe outperforms any of the paid material available out there. I know because I've bought it all. Okay? I spent the last year buying every single course, book, reading it, pouring through it, analyzing it, reviewing it. And now I've come up with a system, a step-by-step system that I've been testing. This is something that I intuitively did for the last 10 years, in fact, back when I was in college. And I've decided to systematize it because I'm sick and tired of seeing people complain about their lack of a dream job when I know that living a rich life has only a small part to do with money, but your career is a big part of that. And if you're spending 8 to 10 hours a day at your career and you are not loving it, then what are you doing? This is the same question I asked to my friends. I said, you're some of the smartest people in this country. You're graduating, no debt, and you're going to work at a company. Why? This company that a monkey could do? Why? What are you contributing? And that's the same question I'll challenge you to. If you're not working in your dream job, have you done every single thing you could? Today I've just scratched the surface and given you a high-level outline, along with some examples. But over time, I'm going to get more specific, more tactical. And I hope to open your eyes that living a rich life, part of that is your career. Part of that is finding a dream job so that every day you wake up and you are thrilled to go to work because you know you're contributing absolutely everything you can to this world. So with that said, the URL again is iwillteachyoutoberich.com/dreamjob. I look forward to sending you more of these. I'd love to have your feedback on what you thought of this and if you have any questions. As usual, I'm Ramit Sethi from I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and I look forward to talking to you soon.